Hey guys, welcome back to Brian's Train Room. Today we're going to do a little something special. I'm here with Bob Osterhoff and we are going to talk Lionel. Can't wait, that's coming your way.
The smoke rises over the prairie, and I see it in the city. Lickety-cut, lickety-cut, listen to the clickety-click.
So we've got a couple questions for you. First of all, if we got to start off is where are you from and what was your profession?
Well, I was born in Dubuque, Iowa. Always lived in the Midwest growing up. And my profession, out of undergraduate college, I joined Xerox and moved to New York and was with the company 33 years. So that was my real profession, as opposed to trains was my passion and my hobby.
I love it. Well, how did you get introduced to model railroading?
Well, I had Lionel trains growing up, and I remember my dad would take me to Chicago often. We were a couple 100 miles from Chicago, and that was a real treat because I could go to the department stores. They had big train layouts, especially around the holidays, and so I always had model trains in memory, but I love riding the real trains. So I still to this day really enjoy riding trains, especially in different countries.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm assuming as a kid you kind of got away from trains, and then as you got a little bit older, kind of what got you into the collector side of it, or sort of reintroduced to trains?
Well, as I remember in the 1950s, I was into Lionel trains. I had got trains for Christmas a couple times. Always enjoyed that. And then I decided to expand, and I went into HO. And I just could not get the bug to appreciate HO trains. I didn't want to build a layout. And from there, I went into postage stamps. So I became quite interested in other countries, in the stamps that they would issue. I also, although not a profession, I had an opportunity to serve on the Postmaster General's Advisory Committee, and our charter was to select the subjects for U.S. postage stamps and then commission the designers. So that got me into very serious, what they call philately, mm-hmm. and enjoyed that thoroughly. And that lasted until about 1975, when my father threatened to give away my trains that were stored for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And my son Mike was 3 years old at the time, and I told my dad that we lived in New York and he was in Iowa, and I said, bring the trains. And as soon as I got the boxes and I opened them up, I was hooked again. That was October of 1975, and I've never given up since.
That's amazing. What do you remember sort of those early years of collecting, or kind of starting to build, sort of getting into it? What do you recall from that?
Yeah, I never viewed myself as a collector. I built a layout. In fact, I moved 6 times, and each time the trains moved with me. So I had to build and rebuild the layout. A couple of times the layouts moved as well. So I viewed myself as an operator, especially in the late 70s, versus being a collector. So I wasn't looking for pieces that I had to fill my collection. I looked for pieces that were fun to run. For instance, I grew up, my grandfather worked for the Milwaukee Road. So I always had trains from the Milwaukee Road. And I remember my uncle visiting. He would always take the Burlington. So I liked the Burlington.
So you're known for being interested in the paper and some of the non-train Lionel items. What kind of got you interested or headed that direction when it came to what the things you went for?
Well, that's a great question because I got into paper and collectibles by accident. The accident was, and by the way, I will go back and emphasize that one thing I learned in my early days of model railroading is get as much knowledge as you possibly can. And knowledge comes in the form of periodicals, books, and I really, really enjoyed especially the McComas and the Greenberg books back in the early 80s. And I made a comment to Bruce Greenberg, I'll never forget this, that, I really enjoy your books about the trains, but you're missing a key component, and that's the catalogs that often came with the trains. And I mentioned it in good faith, and he came back to me and he says, well, if you think that's so important, why don't you write a book on it? And I went, okay, I can do that. So that started the venture of catalogs, and of course, not just the consumer catalogs. It's the advanced catalogs and different types of paper that Lionel put out. And you have to remember, and I've learned this, that back in the late 1940s, Lionel was one of the top 10 corporations in America, not as large as RCA, for instance, or GE or Coca-Cola,
Right.
but they were among good company in promoting their products. And that's what the catalogs and the paper is all about. So I expanded from catalogs to military. They came out with cameras, fishing reels. So there's a lot more than trains. And I found that to be fascinating. And by the way, it was a lot less expensive than buying the trains.
That's fair.
So I continued on that path. I still love the trains, but I've learned that there's more to the hobby than just running trains on a track.
Right. You mentioned the Greenbergs paper and collectible book that you authored, and tell me a little bit about that experience and how you kind of went about sort of organizing or researching it a little bit to be able to put it together.
One thing that took place, especially in the late 70s and early 80s, Bruce Greenberg was passionate about sharing knowledge about the trains. Mm-hmm. And he would have a group of us on a list of people that would receive information. And he would circulate this, by the way, through the mail. Didn't have internet. We didn't have email. We just had copies of some of this information that he would circulate. And that's how we gained knowledge. And that's also how I was able to write the book, because no one can have a collection so comprehensive that everything would be in the book. So I made contact with a lot of different people. And I found the collecting community to be very anxious to share their knowledge, share their items and their treasured items in their collection. And that's how the book grew.
That is so true. And I got to tell you, I cut my teeth on that book. I loved it. And I still use it today as a valuable reference. So well done. So Bob, kind of what's one of your more favorite Lionel items?
That's a tough question because everything's a favorite with me. But there's a few items that really come to mind. The first is I still have my 1953 catalog. Original catalog.
That looks very well worn.
Very well worn. I can't tell you how many times I've gone through this. It's all taped up. There's a hole punched here because I hung it from my train layout, my little train layout when I was a boy. And it's a treasure because this really set the stage for my passion for Lionel trains. This is more a memory. It's priceless. But one of the most interesting experiences I had was After I retired from Xerox, I did consulting primarily in Asia, and I was in my hotel room in Bangkok, Thailand. I couldn't sleep, so I did the next best thing, and that was to search eBay.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a very interesting item listed on eBay. It was the original M Award that was awarded to Lionel Corporation in 1943 for their excellence in manufacturing during the war. And it was a really, really cool item. But here I am in Bangkok, not knowing, well, is this going to work out or not? And I bid, and I won the lot. I was excited, except how do I pay?
Right.
So I had to work that out. That was more complicated than bidding.
Mm-hmm.
But that's probably one of the most treasured items I have because it's one of a kind, and it really documents the power and the success of Lionel during the war.
So this was the actual certificate that was presented to Lionel at the ceremony. Is that correct?
That is correct. It was the actual certificate presented to Joshua Lionel Cowan.
That is amazing.
And so I treasure that. The other item that I have is the documentation of the sale of Lionel by Joshua Cowan to a consortium led by the infamous Roy Cohn. It's interesting how I obtained this because I was contacted by the former treasurer of Lionel, George Paget, who saw my book on paper and asked if I was interested in speaking to him, that he might have something I would be interested in. And I went, sure. So I met him. We met for lunch at the Waldorf Astoria in New York. And he brought out this paper. I remember I was so excited and nervous I spilled my water. Fortunately, it didn't touch any of the paperwork.
That's a good thing.
But that's a good thing. But what he had, he had the... it was fortunate that he understood the significance and he saved this paperwork from the dumpster. So it was the actual signed documents turning over the company to a group led by Roy Cohn and David Chase of Chase Manhattan. And that really is a sad era of Lionel in late October 1959.
Wow. So again, in doing research for the Paper and Collectibles book, did you have an opportunity to talk to some employees a little bit during the process of that?
I did. I should mention, though, research can take different forms. And talking to employees, talking to people are one form. Equally important form is library research. For instance, I spent a lot of time at the National Archives in Washington, the Library of Congress, the people at the Manhattan, New York State Archival Center in downtown Manhattan were fantastic. I had access to documentation about Lionel that was never published before. So that was a very, very important focus. And then you get to the focus of talking with the people. I had a chance to talk with some great people that worked at Lionel back in, some go back even to the Second World War.
Wow.
Anthony Fauci, Louis Melchione. Anthony Fauci, by the way, was a manufacturing supervisor, so he oversaw a lot of the manufacturing. Louis Melchione ran the print shop in the basement of Hillside Plant, where they, believe it or not, printed a lot of the instruction sheets that went with the sets and went with the products of Lionel. They gave me an enormous amount of good information about the good old days of Lionel. Sometimes it wasn't the good old days, but they persevered and they had an extreme respect for the company. They loved working there, and they shared that very explicitly with me, that it was a great opportunity that they had.
What was it like working at Lionel that best you could tell?
I did an entire section in my book on the people of Lionel, human resources. It was a very rigid, tightly managed company. If you were working in manufacturing, for instance, you put in your time. An honest day's work was expected. And they even had a poster that said, "Do not steal utensils from the cafeteria."
Wow.
So apparently there might have been a problem there. But the people there, again, were proud of working for Lionel. And I think Lionel treated them well. They worked hard. There's no question about it. Were they paid well? I believe so. There was issues as you got into the mid to late 60s. And that's where you get into the Hagerstown discussion when they moved production from Hillside, New Jersey to Hagerstown, Maryland. That did not go over well. So they had some people issues with that type of move. But I think by and large, people were proud of the products that they produce, and they were quality products.
At the height of the 50s, how many employees, give or take, you think they had at the factory?
Oh, I think the top, I believe the top number was about 2,500. And that varied, of course, wartime production going back 41, especially 42 to 45, probably reached their peak and into the late 40s.
Interesting. So to especially post-war Lionel collectors, Madison Hardware in New York City is sort of the thing everybody loves to talk about. And you have some experience with Madison Hardware. So I'd love to hear about, maybe your first time to Madison Hardware as well as maybe the last.
Sure. I remember my visits fondly because I absolutely, every time I had an opportunity to go to Manhattan and living in upstate New York, I always cherish the chance to visit Madison Hardware. I remember my first time was in the late 1970s. I walked in, I was overwhelmed, as everyone is. I was never close friends with the owners, the employees there, but they always treated me very well. I have very fond memories. I do remember standing at the counter on one visit, and the gentleman next to me purchased a boxcar. And I'm just kind of listening to the transaction taking place. And I was just absolutely blown away because he was paying $100 for a boxcar.
Wow.
And back in the late 1970s, that was a big deal. Today, not so much. But I was able to visit there several times in my visits to Manhattan, enjoyed every time. And I had another chance to visit Madison Hardware. I went there, I believe it was 1988, 1989. And I went to the door and it said closed, and it was during the day. I went, what's going on here? So I knocked because I saw people inside. And Charlie Liebrook, who worked for Dick Kuhn, answered the door. And I knew Charlie from my collecting days. And I said, hi, Charlie, what's going on here? He said, well, Madison is closed, and Mr. Kuhn purchased it. And that's the end of an era. And I said, can I go in? And he said, no, it's over. I went, thank you.
So you were
And
there basically on the last day?
The last day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, at least at the front door. Almost got my foot in the door.
Once Madison Hardware had moved to Detroit, did you have any further dealings with Madison Hardware?
I did. The LCCA had a convention in Dearborn, I believe it was 1993. And so I did a tour of both the Lionel headquarters, which was then in the Detroit area, and also Madison that was moved there. So that was enjoyable. I remember seeing the stacks and stacks of catalogs, and you could reach your hand in the bin and grab as many of the lock-ons as you can hold. I don't believe that they charge for those.
Speaking of catalogs, is that where the infamous stack of 66 catalogs came from by chance?
It is. It came from Madison Hardware. It actually was a pallet.
A pallet?
A pallet of 66 catalogs. So the next time your viewers see on eBay a rare 1966 catalog for how many dollars, don't believe it.
Now, one of the other publications that you've put out is the Fun Factory book. Tell me a little bit about the book, how it came to light. Are you putting it together?
Sure. Ironically, the book started with a discussion between John Schmidt and myself at a stout auction during a break when he suggested, he says, how would you like to do a book for me? I have a great respect for John and his late father, George. Great people. And I said, well, what would the book be on? And he said, I don't know, make up a topic. I said, well, how about the factories? Yes, that's good. That's how it started. And so I did digging. I loved the research. And I got into visiting as many of the locations as possible, whether they are a vacant lot or a complete facility, still a business, for instance. I remember distinctly Murray Street. I was able to get inside the building, so I could really have a feel for what it was like. Obviously, Lionel was not there anymore. But probably the most helpful research came from the Manhattan archives. And the director of the archives, she's since passed, but she was extremely helpful and allowed me to look at documents that have never been looked at in over 100 years. The original blueprints for the Murray Street factory. So that kind of research and my ability to look at the real thing was really a lot of fun. I made a first priority in doing my research to look outside the train hobby. I don't want to be crass in saying this, but I found that when you see documentation and read it, it absolutely validates what you think or what you wish to write about versus perhaps someone's opinion, which doesn't really belong in a book. So I learned that important lesson. But just going through the factories, I remember distinctly Bob Stein, who was the treasurer and chief financial officer of Lionel back in the 60s. In fact, he and Lenny Dean literally shut the lights off at the factory in late 69 or mid 69. I remember he and I went to the factory to try to go in and look at it. And they wouldn't. They says, no, we don't have people come in. I know there's a lot of Lionel people that would like to, but we can't do that. And Bob Stein made a comment. He says, well, I used to be in charge of all of the contamination, finding the contamination. I know exactly where it's all at. I can help you. And they said, please come in. So we had a great tour of the factory, through the offices, on the floor. Even they let us go on the roof.
Helps to know people.
Love it. Yes, absolutely.
Again, what was your experience kind of writing the book and kind of putting that out there?
Painful. I love the research. Writing is a challenge, but I got through it, and it helped to work with someone like John Schmidt. John was very patient, and he did a fantastic job with the images, and we had support of Roger Karp editing. Roger, of course, being associated with Classic Toy Trains magazine. So it was a great experience, and it's a passion. It's a labor of love, but I would do it again.
Yeah, that's a fantastic book. It's fun to read. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So again, you've really kind of gone after paper as well as sort of the non-train Lionel production. So of the non-train Lionel production, what is sort of your most favorite item from that?
Well, I have to believe that there's actually three areas that I consider non-trains. One is Airex, which is the fishing reel, fishing products. The other is Linex, which is the stereo camera, and the other is the military production. So I really enjoy all three of those areas being non-trained, but yet this is a very, very important part of the Lionel Corporation over the years. Military goes back to the First World War through the Vietnam era. Airex was a disaster in terms of bringing the camera to market in 1953 and 1954. And Airex was fishing products from 1948 until 1963. But I like to collect products from those. They're all subsidiaries of Lionel. Sometimes there's a crossover between the trains and these products, mostly not.
Mm-hmm. What's that cherry on top, that piece that just kind of like, I really like this piece?
Oh, that piece is, I have a lot of the military items, which I love. There's paper and there's physical products like the binnacles, the compasses. But the one piece that has eluded me is the alidade. An alidade is a Army product made for the U.S. Army that measures. It's a measurement instrument.
Really? And it's just one of those pieces that was made and just.
Oh, I've seen them. I've seen two of them.
Yep.
None for sale.
None for sale. I got you. Very good. If you were to go back in time, what would you want to go see, or what would you want to learn? What's kind of that thing that you want to say, I want to go see that? What are your thoughts on that? Or who would you go talk to?
I would, well, the people that I would like to talk to from Lionel are all deceased, because I would go back many, many years. Two eras. I would like to go back and explore Lionel in the 1930s. It was their golden period, I think, even though they went through a receivership. They didn't go through bankruptcy, but they went through receivership. But that had to be a fascinating era, how they were able to save the company. And part of it was the family, the Cowan family's own finances that kept them afloat. That would be fun. The other experience, I would love to walk the production floor in the 1950s. I would love to see.
I'll be right there with you.
I would love to see how they did such a phenomenal job. The quality of their products was absolutely phenomenal. By the way, that's how they got the military contracts, because they had phenomenal engineers and they had excellent, fantastic production people. I'd love to see that in person.
I would too. I'd be right there with you. We're going to go together when I
Absolutely.
invent the machine. That's fascinating. All right. Well, very good. All right. Well, guys, we're going to wrap this up. It was absolutely fantastic talking to Bob, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. I can't thank you enough. Thank you, sir.
Oh, my pleasure. You bet.
All right.
Did I say elude or elude?
It doesn't matter. Good job. All right, guys. Well, that's my interview with Bob Osterhoff. And let me tell you, I could not have asked for any better of an interviewee for my very first time. You could tell that he has a passion for Lionel trains, and I learned so much in the period of time that I got to spend with him. The two books we talked about, which were the Greenbergs Guide to Paper and Collectibles, as well as the Lionel Trains Fun Factory, are definitely books that you should have on your shelf. They are great reference books. If by chance you know Bob or you want to meet him, hey, at the next show or train show, if you might see him, especially York, go up, say hi. I guarantee you, you will learn something from him. He is one of the treasures that we have in our collecting community. Well, guys, it was a ton of fun getting to do this interview and sharing it with you guys. And as always, hey, thanks for joining me on Brian's Train Room.